Hey, Emilia.
Hey, Pauline.
I think we're going to kind of break the ice already by saying that we know each other since way back.
Way back. We actually went 1 week together in school when we were children, but then Pauline were too cool, so she left. And then we went to photo university together, and then I was too cool, so I left. And then we actually got pregnant and had our children the same year. So we shared a lot of the experience around becoming mothers together.
So we're going to have a talk tonight. It's going to be someone needs to wave at us if we continue above 45 minutes, because we also want to make room for questions. So if you have any thoughts, any comments, any reflections, anything you want to say to Emilia, just, in the end, there will be a moment for that. Yes. And we're going to talk not only about the exhibition, but I think it's important for you to also know a bit about Emilia's background as a photographer, as an artist, as a writer, and how everything is kind of full circle with what you see on the walls in the exhibition. So we're actually going to start not by talking about Emilia, but about Orlando Jiménez, which is your father.
Yes, so I grew up, my father is from Venezuela, so I grew up in Stockholm with my mom, my siblings, and my father, and he had a dark room in our bathroom when I was a kid. So he always took pictures, and he brought the camera everywhere, photographing me and my siblings, and I decided very, very early on, I think when I was 12 years old, I was determined, or it was decided that I was going to be a photographer. I had no doubts that that was going to happen. And I actually got my first camera from my dad, the one he used to take photos with when I was 12. And to this day, I think these photos are still one of my biggest inspirations, and I think that if you know my work, you can see that they're kind of echoing through. Exactly. And sometimes I think about photography as just something that goes round. You're just like repeating the photo that you're always looking for the same kind of picture. Yeah. And the next photo, are you gonna? Yeah. This is actually my sister being born. So my mother had 4 C-sections, and my dad was taking photos of this one. And I remember when I was a child looking at this photography and being like so fascinated with it. And now when I've been to all these C-sections myself, I'm very impressed by my dad and also very curious about like how this came to be, like how the doctors let him be in there with the camera, and maybe it was a little freer in the 80s or maybe it was not, I don't know. But I think this photo had a huge impact on me from when I was very, very young.
And as you kind of, dwelled into photography yourself, there are a few artists that you mentioned being, inspiration of yours, Sally Mann being one of them. And there's 3 photographs, there's 2 that I'm going to show, because the third one we don't have a picture of, but there's 3 photographs that had kind of made a big impact on you. One is The Three Graces.
Yes.
By Sally Mann.
Yeah, I remember seeing this photo. I think I was about 20 years old, maybe. And when I learned about Sally Mann's work, I was so completely fascinated. And I think to me, photography has always been something that, like, you're telling your own private story. To me, it has not been so much like photographing other people, except now when I'm in this birth. But before that, it was a lot about my own kind of story, my own family. And I think I drew so much inspiration from her. And I know that she's very controversial, but to me, she was always like, I think her photos always spoke so extremely true to me. Yeah.
2 other inspirations that I wanted to mention is, of course, Nan Goldin, who I know has been a big inspiration of yours also since your very early days, right?
Yes, it was before I even went to photography school. I was so fascinated by Nan Goldin and the way she kind of photographed the ones around her, the people that she loved, and she made it so important, and she made it like, I felt that it was about me. It was not about her. It was like the same story as I wanted to tell her. And she photographed her friend Cookie, who's in this picture. This is when Cookie's getting married. And she also photographed Cookie a lot with her son.
Yeah.
And those photos also meant so much to me. And I think she also photographed when Cookie died, actually.
Another Swedish photographer that also was a mentor of yours was Anna Klarén.
Yes. Anna is like a very groundbreaking photographer in Sweden. She is extremely stringent with what she does. She has one way and she goes it. And I think she had she took a lot of fire. Yeah. And as a woman and as a photographer, she inspired me so much for standing her ground in everything she did. And she also taught me that photography can be poetry, that it's just not, sometimes a photo is not what it's in the photo, it's just how it makes you feel.
And the final source of inspiration that I want to mention, and the second image that you should keep in mind when we continue the conversation, is of course Rineke Dijkstra, and her photo series called New Mothers from 1994.
I think I saw this photo because at the photography school where I went, there was a library, and I think there was a catalog from exhibition in Helsinki, actually. And this photo was in the catalog. And I was 20 years old, and I remember looking at this photo and I was like, I cannot believe that this is what it looks like. At that time, I had no comprehension about childbirth or what it would look like. And I mean, I remember when seeing this photo, I was really shocked. I was like, is this what it looks like? Is this because it was so vulnerable to me, and there was so much strength in it as well. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I also want to mention for you in the back, there are actually 2 chairs here, if in case you want to sit down.
Yeah, you want to come in there in front row.
And 2 beanbags too.
But should we say something about the photo who is not in the slideshow as well?
Yes, thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, because also since my father is a photographer and he is from South America, in my house there was a lot of exhibition catalogs with Latin American photographers, and a photo that I looked at maybe a million times was a Mexican photographer who had taken, her name is Graciela Inturbide, and she'd taken a photo of a child that was on a bed, and the child had black clothes, and there was black cushions and black pillows around the child. And I learned maybe the 10th or 12th time I was watching that photo, I learned that the child was dead. And that is a tradition in Mexico, or was tradition that when somebody dies, you put them up like a little parade and you take a photo. And I think all these photographs together just kind of stuck with me my whole life.
Yeah. And then after your college dropout, I almost said sorry.
When I was goodbye.
You started a career as a commercial photographer.
Yes.
You moved back to Stockholm. And you've been working as a commercial photographer ever since. But I think we have to remind ourselves what commercial photography, advertising, looked like 20 years ago when you started.
Yes, I started out in 2007, and I was very determined to make it as a commercial photographer. And one thing that I started working with from the beginning, and I was very hardcore at the time. I mean, I was really pushing forward. At that time in Stockholm, nobody was talking about equality or diversity, or that you should put different kind of people in the picture, different families, different type of skin color, or different. It was very mainstream and very the same. And I kind of started a fight, really, with all my clients, that not only should we be diverse and inclusive and put different people, different body types, different families in front of the camera, but we should also do it in a non-generic way. We should not be so afraid that everything in the picture has to be so perfect. So early on, I shot everything analog with no digital. Now I shoot a lot of digital, but back then I did only analog, and I didn't let my customers see anything. I was really stringent and no extra lights, everything with natural light and so on. And it doesn't really sound like such a big deal, but it was a huge thing back then. And really it still is. If you look at commercial photography and what it looks like today, it's extremely pitch perfect. But I have managed to keep this movement going and also change the actual scene of commercial photography, because now when you get a brief, it always says that you have to think about the inclusivity and you have to think about diversity and so on.
But in the, while doing this, you were also doing your own projects. You were doing artist collaborations. You were doing exhibitions. You started an Instagram account that grew pretty big.
Yes.
You were politically pretty active.
Yes.
You did a lot of things.
I'm burned out now.
Exactly. While doing all of this, did you? I mean, you were basically building a very, successful career. The thought about and living with another photographer also.
Yes.
With Erik. How were your thoughts about doing that combined with being or possibly becoming a mother?
No, those thoughts were not great. No, the outlook on being a mom were not so great. I really wanted to be a mom. I always wanted to have a child or children. But back then, before I had my son 8 years ago, my identity was my work. Yeah. Like, I was a photographer and I was really afraid of losing that identity. And since I also lived with another photographer, I could really see that very clearly. Like, if I get pregnant and we have a child, then it's going to affect me a lot. So my career, I have to leave, or I have to be home, or I have to do all these things. My body is going to change. I have to carry the child. I have to give birth, everything. And he's just going to go on, and it's not going to affect him as much. And at that time, that scared me a lot. So what I did was I came up with this wonderful, great idea that we were going to share equally on the maternity and paternity leave if we had a child, and also that I was not going to breastfeed. So I thought that was a really great idea. But
because then this happened, of course. In 2017, your son Miguel was born. Shout out to Miguel. And I mean, actually wanted to quote you on, because we will get to that, but the text in the exhibitions are written by you. Everything is written by you. There's one section that says, there's so much that dies the second a child is born. Old truth and the people we were before we became parents, what we thought we knew about what was to come. So first of all, how was this change for you, but also how was the actual, the birth?
Well, I think this moment, like this very moment that you see, has everything to do with where we are today and why I'm here. Yeah. And when I had Miguel, I was not prepared at all. Like, the very brilliant idea that I came up with to keep the breastfeeding away from me and just sharing equally and so on was a way for me to keep my old identity and not stepping so much into the actual change of what was going to happen. But then the moment that he was born, this very moment, this is actually one of the doctors, the anesthetics doctor who took this photo of us. And I was in the hospital for 4 days while giving delivery, and it ended with this emergency C-section. And I remember so clearly, like, I was on the table and I had been giving birth for many, many days, and I was so extremely tired. And then all of a sudden in the room, everything grew quiet. And then I heard his scream, for the first time. And then they put him on my chest, and Erik was there, and he just kind of fell down on us. And it was the most intense moment of my life. And this doctor took this photo, and nothing was the same, and I was changed. But I kind of stuck in my old ways. I didn't know how to change with that role. I didn't know how to grow because I was so afraid. And the birth was very traumatic, but I never even let myself think about the trauma that it caused me, because I thought that every childbirth was like that. I thought there was only one narrative to giving birth, and that was a trauma. Like, you go into the hospital, you have a child, you get a trauma, you come out, and then you try to recover from it for years and years. And in that recovery, you fight your way through it, or you're and I was so lost. And the decisions that I made beforehand, they were not serving me so well. They served me very well in my career, because I started to work after 2 months, and I have never been so successful in my whole career. And they served me economically, and I also think they served my husband's relationship with my child a lot, but they did not serve me. And I spent many years when Miguel was a child being very depressed and not feeling like I was enough for anyone or anything.
I mean, during your pregnancy, and also, once Miguel was born, and the life and how everything changed after that, you used photography as you always had, as a way to capture that and capture your new reality and your family and your feelings about being a mom. You also shared that with your followers on Instagram, but you also started writing.
Yes, when Miguel was born 8 years ago, I had been a commercial photographer for almost 10 years. Yeah. But I had never written, only small posts maybe on Instagram. But when Miguel was born, with him, there was also this urge to write. Because with the love that I felt for him, and also how completely lost I felt, and how new everything was, and how new it was for me and Eric both, this whole new landscape and this whole new feeling that love, I had never felt anything compared to this. I felt like I have never knew what love is. This is love. This is something extraordinary that human beings have inside. And 3 weeks after he was born, I sat down and I wrote my birth story, and I posted it on Instagram with photos. And
this photo, right?
Yeah, this photo and some photos from the actual birth that Eric took. And I have cherished those photos that Eric took on my delivery. There were only a few, but I have looked at them so many times. And the reaction I got from posting this was overwhelming. And I had quite a big Instagram account at that time, but it was just like a wave with messages, emails, comments. And then I realized that, okay, it's not just me. It's almost everyone. Yeah. Everyone has this need to discuss this and talk about this, and it's like a door. And before you step through it, you don't see what's on the other side. But when you step through it, you know that you will never, ever be able to go back to what was before.
I mean, and you do it in a way that is not polished. It's not, it's not fixed, if you know what I mean. Because also, I mean, there's obviously also a picture perfect kind of version of mom, and being a mom and becoming a mom, and being, having a perfect child and everything. Yeah. That was also a big thing on social media, or still is, I guess. What you said, the response from the people and the followers were overwhelming. And somewhere here you started about writing a book, or how? Because this is now, I will get to that soon, but this is also ending up being a book.
Yeah, I just kept writing. I mean, and it's weird. And my husband used to say that, it's weird that you never wrote anything, and then you started to write, and what came out was this very poetical kind of non-stop. It was just so much, and it was just coming from somewhere. I have no idea where it come from. And then I got approached by a book company, and they asked me if I wanted to try to write a book. And at that time, I was so exhausted from trying to do everything, trying to work as a photographer, trying to being a mom. that I said no, like I don't even know who I am. So, but then after a while, I started to think about that. Okay, so I think this is actually needed. So maybe I should give it a try. So I wrote a book, the first one, and it came out 3 years after Miguel was born, and it's about his first years, like his 3 first years of his life, and about becoming a mom and about becoming a dad and a family. And it's like all these photos that me and Eric took together, and my texts that are like very like they're mixed. Some of them are very poetic, some of them are more like really real and really like some are even desperate, some are very euphoric. Like I was also in this state of euphoria with the love that I felt for Miguel. So but that book came out in 2020, and it has been very groundbreaking in Sweden in how you write about parenthood and motherhood. And I think also this book led me to where we are today.
Yeah, because it's a combination of photography and text.
Yes.
So it's not a photo book. It's not a biography either. It's something that, even though it's so deeply personal to you, it's it connects with basically anyone who reads it, anyone who has a shared story or their own version of becoming a parent. Moms and dads.
Yeah, I think it has actually changed the way you talk about becoming a parent in a very profound way. And for me, it was very important to write very specific. Like, as I did not want to have a generic way of taking photographs, I did not want a generic way to write. I wanted to write very, very specific about how it felt. And that's the best way to describe it is that it's very and/or. Like, it's really like the most euphoric thing to become a parent, but it's also like the hardest thing. And then trying to specify that feeling and really write it out in words. And I think that it makes it honest. Yeah.
So The Birth of a Parent and Föräldrasfödelse comes out 2020.
Yes.
And you have just, like you said, 3 years of being a mom, working full time, writing a book on top of that. I think you did an exhibition also that opened in the spring of 2020.
I did.
So there was a lot going on. And I remember you at this time being exhausted.
Yes.
Like you said.
I'm still exhausted. I mean, it's just going on, yeah.
But I also think that the work that you did with this book and how you shared it also made people really see how you, as a photographer and an artist, approach this subject matter in such a natural and honest and way. And an opportunity arose through your agent, right? To do to shoot your first birth, not your birth, but the first.
Yeah, I think it's like important to say that, like, for me, it has always been like all these sides. Like, I've always done the commercial job, but I always done the personal projects, and I've always been very like political in my way to work. And I have used like my personal projects to push forward in my commercial work and so on. So when I started with the Instagram account and it grew quite big, then I was also using that to push forward in other areas, like things I could write about and then try to implement in my commercial work. And I think that's exactly what happened, because I got approached by one of my clients who was an insurance company, and they wanted to change their brand, and they were going to start working with like real events of life. And they were thinking about these like really realistic but magical moments when your life change. And so they asked me if I could do commercial film and shoot it in the delivery room of a childbirth. And when I got asked that question, I thought that sure, like no problem, I can do that. And I also thought that, like, who are they going to ask? I mean, I am perfect for this. It was almost like I had been around, like, waiting for this moment, And then when you work commercially, there's always all these like practical aspects. And in this case, of course, the biggest issue was like, who are we going to find who wants me to be in the delivery room but who is also fine with that this is a commercial film who is going to air in like movie theaters, going to be on national television, like it's going to be photos in the subway, in the tram, on the bus stops, like everywhere. So my agents had like a hard time to find a person who wanted to participate. But one day they called me up and they said that, oh, we met this woman and she has already been thinking about having a photographer present at her birth and she wants to meet you. And so we met, and it was a Thursday morning, I think, and we were sitting on one of Stockholm's biggest like shopping streets, and we had coffee, and we kind of like immediately just had a very strong like affectionate bond with each other. And I really early on I felt that, yeah, I really want to do this, like this could be so amazing. And then we decided that I was going to come with her and her husband to their birth, and it was the birth of her second child. And then we said, like, you always say, like, okay, so, and we decided, like, the practical aspects, like, okay, so how is this going to happen? And then she said, like, okay, so I'm going to call you when it has started and we are going to the hospital. Then I'm going to call you and you can come to the hospital. And we said that, oh, it could be tonight or it could be in 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time or like. And then I went home, and then in the middle of the night, they called me at 1 o'clock. And we're like, it has started, we are going to the hospital now. And then I felt that I couldn't do it.
You panicked?
I panicked. Like my whole system just shut down. Like my knees were shaking, my hands were sweaty, like my feet were shaking. I just felt like my whole body just went into this state of shock. Like, why? Why have I said yes to this? Like, I haven't even thought about how I'm going to react.
Because at this point, you hadn't really dealt with the trauma that you experienced giving birth to yourself 3 years earlier, 4 years earlier at that point.
I think, no, it was only actually 2 years before, because this was a year before the book came out. So, no, I think that at that point, I thought that I had dealt with it because I had written so much about it. But that is not therapy, and that is not, that is not healing. And I think everything was just stored in my body. And then that night, like 1 o'clock in the morning, or you wake up and it's like also a shock, like you're asleep and then there's a phone call, boom, you wake up. I took my stuff and I was like, okay, but I have said to my clients that I'm going to do this and I'm not going to back out. Like talking about being a prestige, like what's it, in Swedish we have this prestationsprinsessa. Oh. Like you can be like you're the princess of prestige. Like you are you're a good girl. You do like you push through. You do your job, right? And so I just took my stuff and I went down to a cab, and I went through the dark night of Stockholm in the cab, and I was just sitting there, and they come up to the hospital and you call the bell like bing bong and they let you in. And I come up to the nurse's station, the reception, and they're like, oh, we have been waiting for you. And I walk down the hallway. And at that point, I also thought that there was going to be like so many screams and like hearing women screaming in the hallway of the delivery ward. But it was so quiet and so calm. And I went up to the door, like the door to the delivery room. And I was standing there and I was thinking, no, I cannot do it. Like my legs they're not moving. And I don't want to go into this room to see this woman die and to see this child die. And me, myself, if I enter this room, I am going to die. It was such a strong fear. But then the door opened and the midwife came out. And she was like, oh, hello. Oh, we have been waiting for you. And then she kind of put her arm like around me and was just like, oh, you can come in now. And then she kind of ushered me in the room, in the door, and I went in.
And it changed everything.
Yeah. in that room, I got to see something that I could never have made it up. I could never have imagined it. I got to see a woman give birth, and she was not afraid. I mean, of course, she was in pain, and she was fighting, and she was doing hard work, but she was not afraid, and she was doing it all herself. And she had told the midwives that she wanted to receive her baby herself with her own hands and pull him up herself. And I was in the room for maybe an hour, and I was photographing, and it was very calm. It was dark, which was strange to me because when I gave birth, like all the lights were on all the time. And this room was so dark and so cozy, and we were just moving around her very like slowly and quietly. And after an hour, the midwife said that now you can reach down and you can touch your baby's head. And I was like, after an hour? I thought we were going to be here for 4 days. So we're like, what? What's going on? I was shocked, really. And then I realized, like all of a sudden I realized that, oh, it's now. It's now. The baby's being born now. And she reached down, and her hands, they were shaking. And I was filming camera, and my hands were shaking as well. And then I felt, oh my God, I need to like get it together, because this is not about me, it's about her, and I'm here to make this as a positive experience for her as I can. So okay, so I filmed, and I filmed while she put down her hands, and she felt her baby's head. And while she was feeling his head, she was stroking his head like this with her thumbs, and she was like, I feel my baby. And then she kind of grabbed onto him, and she put him up on her chest. And as she did so, his eyes were opening, and they were like really big and pool-like and black. And then she said, oh, he's looking at me, he's looking at me. And I didn't, I mean, everything changed to me.
What did you feel when you went home that morning after seeing this? Like, were you already in your mind somewhere like, okay, this is an experience that has changed me. I have now walked through the door and I cannot look back.
Yes. In that very moment when she picked him up and she looked at him, and then she asked the midwives, what should I do? Yeah. Like she was holding him and she was like, what should I do? And then I hear my own voice saying, say hi. and then she was like, hi. And I don't know. I mean, I don't even know where did I get that air. I don't know.
But that's also in the film, right? So there will be a film that you can see after our talk.
You should watch it because it's a film here, and it's actually from that birth. And she says, like, what should I do? And I answer. But yes, I realized in that moment that I had been fooled. Like, silly me. Like, I realized that I had been walking around my whole life thinking that there was only one narrative to birth. Like, of course, I knew that there were different kinds. Like, oh, it's vaginal, it's C-sections, it's twins, it's triplets, so on. But, like, there's still one narrative. It's like one experience. And I realized in that moment that it is not. It is as individual as the person giving birth. Yeah. And being born. Of course, you can accept that every child is an individual, so why shouldn't that experience be as individual? So I thought, I need to stay in this room. Like I felt that I need to be here. I need to stay in here. Now, all of a sudden, I have access to this secret room. I never want to leave. I want to explore what's going on in here, because I have been deceived, really. And then I thought, I mean, what can I do? I have my words and I have my photography, so that's what I.
And you have your also again your communication channel or Instagram account, which I think was the place where you announced. Are you a woman who are about or plan to give birth, and you want me to be in the room and you want me to document it? Reach out, please.
Yeah, after my first book came out, and I did the PR tour and everything with that book, and it was really intense. Then I felt that okay, I really want to go back into the delivery room and start this project now. It was such a strong feeling, and it was actually in the middle of the pandemic, so the views on doing it were not so great, really. But I posted on Instagram, like if exact what you said, like if you are going to give birth and you want me there with my camera, then please email this address. And in just a few hours, I got hundreds of emails, really. And people were inviting me to come to births all over Sweden and different kind of families. And people were even like, you can come and stay with us for a couple of weeks before. And so I really, like early on in the project, I realized that this is something that people really need and want. And that has been the feeling all along, really.
I remember when you told me about this for the first time. You said, I'm going to have a new project. It's going to be called Svenska förlossningar, which I guess in English is Swedish
births.
Swedish birth.
I wanted to have a really dry name for it, but then because it's not dry, it's a very vivid subject.
And it's going to be a book, and it's going to be an exhibition, and I'm going to start now.
And at that time, I also knew that it was going to be in Fotografiska, but Fotografiska didn't know that. But
no. I can tell that's true.
I know it all along.
But you mentioned the circumstances. I mean, this was, like I said, during COVID. You were also, having a... how old was Miguel when you started? 3?
3.
3-year-old at home, and also still working full-time as a photographer.
Yes.
And this is not a small project.
No.
I mean, if your first book was something that you did, with your own writing, your own photographs, and of course Erik's photographs too, this is a project with how many families?
I think I attended all in all around 50 births or more. But in the book, there are 30 families participating in the book and the exhibition. And I was very determined that it has to be such a wide diversity of families and births as possible. So when I started out and I got all these emails, people saying that, oh, we want to participate, then of course you had to start to see what was actually possible. And practical details are really central part of this, because you cannot be you cannot control birth. I mean, that's the essence of it. So it has been so much work trying to find a way, a system, a relationship, how to do this actually. And of course, the biggest support I've had is from my family and my husband, because at that time Miguel was very small, and we had a dog also, and Erik was working full time, and it's been a family business to get this going.
Because it's of course it's not just taking the cab and walking into room. I mean, you're meeting the families before. Yes. You're talking to them. You presented that this is what the project is, and that it's going to be a book and hopefully a show. And also you share with them the photographs. So every photograph that's in the book, if I understand correctly, maybe I'm wrong, is also approved by the families.
Yes. No, it's been actually really rigorous system. I've had a method, and I have followed that method to the point. And there are some cases where I have not followed the method, and that has not turned out so well. So the first step in the method is that they have to contact me. So they have to say that, can you be at our birth? I don't ask, can I come to your birth? You have to ask first. And after you ask, then I had an email with all the information. It says who I was, what I wanted to do, what I did before, and also what I thought about the project, what I wanted to do, that it was going to be a book and a big show. And it also stated the practical details that, of course, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so if I get sick, or if I have a cold, or if my child gets sick or anything, then I can't come to the hospital. And at the beginning of the project, I couldn't even go to the hospital. Then I had to go to home births because I couldn't get into the hospital, because that was a time when even partners were not allowed to actually accompany their partners into the hospital. So. And then afterwards, if they say yes to that, then we meet. And we have a first meeting, and if we and at every step I have always said, like, think about it, don't answer now, go home and think about it. And after a few days, or like they come back with the answer, they're like, yes, we want to do this. Then we meet, then I photograph them in their home, and then there's still like, feel how it feels, like, think about it. And then we decide that I'm going to come with them to the hospital or at home or where they give birth. And then I come with them, then we meet. And then the thing is that I have also been on call, because, so then I said that, okay, so I'm going to be on call 1 week before your due date and 2 weeks after. And that means that I have my phone on all the time. I'm not going away. I don't go to any parties. I don't, like, I'm on call for you all the time. And when you call whenever you like. So it's been very like, when you want me to come, I'm gonna come. So some have called me when they are home in their house and they want me to come with them to the hospital. Most people call when they're going to the hospital. But of course, I've also been to a lot of home births. So then you just come when they feel that they are ready. And then I've also stayed as long as the family wanted me to. And that is a big mistake sometimes. Because, yeah, and of course, I'm also an educated doula, because I had to educate myself in this while doing it, because it was so overwhelming. But if you're a doula, then you always have a backup. Yeah. So you don't stay as long. But I never had a backup, because it was just me doing the project, right? So I have stayed with families for several days in the hospital, and it's very exhausting. But of course, it's also why I think this project has come so far, yeah, and landed this thing in this complete like trust and honesty. And then we meet afterwards, and then I send them the photos. And then for many families, it's been a long time. Like for the first family, I mean, that child was almost 5 years old when the show premiered last year. So it's like a callback after a few years. Then it's like, okay, hello, yeah, now we're going to start to work with the photos. And of course, things can change. Yeah. Like you can feel that it feels all right in the moment, but then after a few years, maybe you don't feel so fine anymore. And so it has been this very delicate give and take. And I have said to the families that they always have the last word. But if there is a photo that I think it's really important, then I'm going to state my case. So there's only been a few cases where a family has said, like, no, not this one, it's too sensitive, or I feel too... A lot of women, like, I feel too fat. I look fat in the photo. Oh. Yeah, that's awful. It's so sad. But then if I state my case, and I said that this is a really important photo, it's this message, this is what I see, then most of them have said, oh, okay, yeah, I understand, I see your point, and then they agree. So, but I feel today when I stand here that I have all these families with me, and we have come to this place where we stand in this so extremely safe and calm.
And I mean, you also have been very clear that you want, like you said, a very diverse mix of families. Yes. And a very diverse mix of ways of giving birth. Yes. So you have, you know, the vaginal birth, if you call it that. You have C-section. You have emergency and planned C-section. Yes. You have twins. You have triplets. Yes. You have, you know, various kind of family constellations. Yes. I mean, it goes without saying, perhaps, but why is that important?
It's important because sometimes I feel that if you look at where birth stories are normally shown today, it's mostly on Instagram. I think most people who are interested in birth or work with birth are birth workers. They see a lot on Instagram. And I think that that is a very like curated world. Even if it's honest and people show their births, it's still very, very curated. And I think it's like so important because birth is so diverse. Like every birth is unique. Still, it has something in common. And for me, it was so important to try to cover as much as possible. But of course, it is impossible to cover everything. And for me, it was also very hard to reach women who, for example, were not born in Sweden and don't speak Swedish, for example, who are newcomers in Sweden. And also women who had complicated pregnancies or sickness during a pregnancy, or women who knew that the child were not well, for example. Those kind of women are extremely hard to reach, because most women who want to share this, or most families who want to share this, are families who in some way are well and like privileged and educated. So it has been a very long road to try to open up the project and make it as diverse as possible. But of course, I mean, that is the importance of it, to show the diversity.
Yeah. And after each birth, you went home and you wrote about your experience. So the book has one chapter per birth with photographs and your texts, right? But it's your thoughts and your feelings about what you experienced. It's not what the woman who gave birth experienced. Is that so?
Yeah, I think I learned very early on that you cannot tell anybody else's birth story, because you don't know what they experience. You can only tell what you see. And I think that's also what's so important, and that is at the very core of my project, is that, of course, I talk a lot now. I talk, but I am also actually a pretty good listener, and I think that is like the key to it, that you actually listen to the person who has given birth, because you don't know. I mean, you and I, we both had C-sections, but if it's not at all, like, even if it's on paper kind of similar, it's not at all like a similar experience. And you got something with you, and I came with my baggage. So I decided that, or it just came to me really, that this is my journey. And I think that is actually also the whole point of the project, that I have educated myself. I have changed my position. Like, I was at that position where I didn't want to breastfeed, and I had a very static point of view. Like, I thought, like, why do you need to breastfeed? Like, it's unnecessary. And the more I stated that opinion, the more attacked I got, the more I needed to defend myself, the more I felt that, oh, right, I'm standing on a hill here, and I'm gonna have to die on this hill because I feel so attacked. But now, where I am now, and have seen and experienced all these different kind of births, women, people, places, families, everything, I feel that it's not up to me to say anything. Like, you give birth the way you feel. Like, your dream scenario could be my nightmare, and you don't know. And the only way to find out is to listen to each other and respect each other and not compare with each other. And I think that is also why it's so important that this is a project of art. It is not a project on social media. It is not information that you're given on social media, because social media just caters to this feeling that you're always comparing yourself to other. This is a contemplation, a dialogue with everyone who sees these photos. And you are welcome to have your own private dialogue, and there is no judgment here.
I mean, let's talk a bit about the exhibition and how it's laid out, because you start in darkness.
Yes. When you come into the exhibition, in that room, it's dark, it's black, and I call that room the night. And that is because I learned from very early stages in the project that a lot of birth starts at the night. Of course, your melatonin makes your oxytocin flow, and then birth starts. And I have been in so many cabs, taxis, cars in the middle of the night, and you're so tired, and also with so many families going to the hospital in the middle of the night. So that's where I wanted to start. And I also chosen there's a lot of different starts. So when you go back and you look in the black room, you can see that there are all these different places where birth can start. And then after that, you come into the red room, and the red room is actually the womb or the birth canal, and that is where the children are starting to like come down and come out. And there's even one photo of a woman looking at her child in a mirror, and he's not even born yet. You can just see his head in the birth canal. And then the last room is the day or the morning and the daylight that comes when the child is actually like ascending into this world. So this is the last part, and this is where the children comes out. And you have all these kind of different places and ways and emotions.
Yeah, speaking of emotion, I wrote down what I feel when because I've been following you doing this from day one basically, but then also, seeing the show when it premiered in Stockholm last year, now seeing it here, it still makes me very teared up, to be honest. When we had a press tour this morning, I wrote down euphoria, exhaustion, energy, relief. I mean, to me, all the emotions that I felt during my own birth or delivery of birth, emergency C-section, there was a lot of things going on, actually. It comes back, and I think it's, you can't walk through the show, you can't, read your book without being filled of emotions. One thing that I remember you said when we did the last artist talk, when the show premiered, is that since you also have no text to the photographs, like you don't explain the story of what happens, like everything went down in each birth, because the photographs are what they are.
Yes.
It's kind of what you make of them, I guess.
Yes. I think there's like, there was, for a long time for me, there was a lot of fear. Yeah. I was very scared. When I started the project, I had a lot of fear. And then eventually that fear started to go away. And when I educated myself to become a doula, a lot of the fear passed away, actually. But then sometimes when I see people look at the photos, I see that people have a lot of fear, and they think maybe some of the photos are scary or uncomfortable, and then I always think that, but most of these photos don't say anything about how the experience for the woman was. Like, you look at this photo, like there's one photo there where you see like a head coming out, actually, like you see from a woman from behind, and you see the head, and the child is being born, and it doesn't say anything about how she experienced the birth. It's just the photo of the child coming out, and it is what it is. This is what it looks like. So it has no value. It's not scary. It's not anything. It's just what it is. It's not. And then you can feel your own feelings, but the photos, they are what they are, because you don't know what the woman experienced. It's your experience. It's your feelings. It was you read into the picture. And I welcome people to deal with that. I think that is like the main thing with this exhibition. Like you reach into your own existential core, really, because giving birth and being born is the most existentially formative experience you can have in your life. It will change you forever. You go into the room and then you come out and you are more yourself, but you're also a different person. And you don't know how you're going to deal with what's coming after that. And being open with yourself and being honest and not doing what I did, just hiding that away and trying to force it like to the back of my head and never deal with it. I just think like being open to this and being open to your own humanity, that is what this exhibition can really give you. And actually, before today, I met a man from Finland who was here this morning. Before the exhibition really opened, he got in with his wife. They were looking at the photos. He looked really troubled, like walking around looking really troubled. And then I saw him down in the cafeteria, and I said, "Oh, you looked at my exhibition. Like, what did you, like, how are you feeling?" And then he started to cry. And he said, "I have not felt this feeling in 35 years. Wow. I had forgotten what it felt like." And I had twins, and and when they were born, I could only meet them 5 minutes after they were born because I could not be in the room when they had an emergency C-section. And I had forgotten that. And everything comes back to me seeing this.
35 years. Wow. So the book, Födas och att föda, to be born and to give birth.
Yes. I'm practicing my syndidaya sunnitada.
Exactly. Spot on. It will be available here. It's only in Swedish.
It's
unfortunately,
only in Swedish.
We're working.
Yeah, the
we're working on that.
book process about translations is very complicated.
Apparently.
But yeah.
There's one thing that I want to wrap up with, and that is, of course, I'm going to quote you again from the book, but also this is part of the text that's in the show, where you say we need to talk about death.
Yes.
In relation to birth. Where does our consciousness come from? Where do we actually come from? And where do we go when we die? What happens to those who die before birth? Because there's one chapter in the book with no images. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yes. Like one of the most like frequently asked questions that people ask me is like, has there been an accident, or have you been to a birth where it didn't go well? And when people say like, did it all go well or did it go well? What people mean is that did the child survive or did the mother survive? And I think there are various ways that things can go well and not so well. But I have, on all the births I have been to, which is a lot, and there are extremely few who have been complicated or even had like interference, and that is not because I was there, but there is a evidence-based study that says that if you have a doula, then like the outcome can be more positive for your birth. And I think that it is also like when you have the like possibility to prepare as much as the families that I have been with, then the outcome gets more positive. So in a way, a lot of these births have been very, very, very euphoric and very, very like beautiful and calm and kind of sometimes even a bit boring. And that's that's the midwife's favorite one. Okay. Like, it should be boring. Then you know that it's good. And but I was called from a hospital actually a couple of years ago, and there was a midwife calling me, and she said like, I understand that this is a very weird call for you, but I'm in the hospital right now with a couple who has given birth to a little girl, and she did not live. Well, she was stillborn, and they have been waiting for. She called me on a Monday, and she said that she gave birth on a Saturday, and they have been waiting 2 days for the hospital photographer to come. Because when you have a child, when you have stillbirth in Sweden, you have a hospital photographer, and they come and they help you document and take a picture of the child, and you also get like this handprint and footprint. But the hospital photographer was sick, so there was no one there. And then she said, like, I know this is really weird, but can you come? And I said, yeah, sure, I'll be there. I'm just gonna finish up my lunch and I'll be there. So I went to the hospital, and I came there, and I met this midwife, and she was in tears, like totally distraught. And she said, oh, everything is chaotic here today. We have C-sections. I have to prepare for that. And I don't know if I made the right choice calling you, because now my boss is really mad because she says that I can't let you in, and I don't know what to do. And then I said, okay, but it's fine. I'm gonna sit down right here. There was like a couch. I'm gonna sit here, and you do everything you need to do. And when things have calmed down, you come and get me, and we will go into the family together. And then I will talk to your boss tomorrow. I will make all the arrangements. I will call. I will deal with that. You don't have to worry. So I just sat and waited for a couple of hours, and then she came back, and she was like, okay, so I think we're ready now, and I think the family is ready. So I went in, and it was a family from Pakistan who had come to Sweden because he got a job in Sweden. And they had come in on a Friday because they didn't feel any movement. And then they discovered that the child did not live in the womb. And then she gave birth to the child. And the midwife told me that, after a few, the child had been born on the Saturday, and it was Monday. So of course now she's not going to look as alive. So you don't be shocked because it doesn't look like a living child anymore. But when I came in, I didn't think about that she looked different. And then I came in and I did exactly the same thing that I do with all my other families. And I told them, of course they didn't know me, but I told them, I'm here and I'm going to take photos of your daughter and for you. And you just tell me what photos you want me to take. And if you want maybe to change her clothes, or you want to hold her a special way, or you want anything, you just tell me. And when you think that it is enough, you just tell me, and I'm just going to pack up and go. But I'm going to take as many photos as I can while I'm here. So I photographed them, and the first thing I did was ask her name, and then if I could touch her, and say hello to her. And then I photographed them, and they wanted to take a family picture when they were all together holding their baby. And then they also wanted to change her clothes, change her hat, change her clothes, and a couple of pictures. And then after a while, the mom kind of said, I think it's enough now. And then I just told the father, because he was the most communicative, I said that when you are ready to see your daughter, I will send you the photos. So just tell me whenever you're ready. Because I knew that night they were going to go home from the hospital. And they did not get to bring their child. She had to stay in the hospital. And I thought that maybe they would, not want to see her, not want to see the photos. But then the same night I got a message saying that when can we see our beautiful daughter? And then I had prepared a link, so I just sent them the photos right away. And then I didn't hear anything for a very long time. And then the mother called me up and she said, "You helped me so much." And I asked her if she wanted me to make prints. I said, I can make prints for you so you can have them in a frame. And she said, "No, we already did that. We have her at home. She's with us." And with all the things I did, you can get a really big ego from being at births, because sometimes you feel like you are doing such a great thing, oh, this went really well because I was there. That is not true. You have, nothing is on you. It is, but this thing was a good thing. I felt it was a good thing because they did not get to bring their child home. Yeah. But they had the photos. So I wrote a chapter in the book, and I decided very early on, because I said to them, the photos of your daughter are for you. I'm not going to show them to anyone else. And just a couple of months before we printed the book, I sent the chapter to them. And I said, this is anonymous, and I'm not going to tell anyone your name, or I'm not going to show a photo of your daughter, but I just want to tell this story because it has affected me so much, and I've been thinking so much about you. And they said that we are very proud of our daughter. We love her, and we are so grateful to you. And if you want to feature our daughter in the book or in the exhibition, you're more than welcome. And I think that was just right. And she is in the book in text, but she is not with the photos, because the photos were always for them.
I think we will wrap it up for questions now.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Emilia.
Thank you, Pauline. Oh. Thank you so much.
All right. Don't be shy.